Welcome to our webinar for the day, which is navigating through the procedure for reaching out to the African market or PVoC program. I am Vrinda Nair, currently working as a regional manager for Certification Center with SGS. With a background of chemical engineering, I handle the technical team here in the coordination and the operations for managing the certification of PVoC program. I have an experience of 14 plus years in the industry. And along with me joining is my co-presenter, Ms. Prima.
Good morning. A warm welcome to all of you. My name is Prima D'souza. I've been with SGS for almost 16 years now. I'm basically handling the operations for Africa regions. With product conformity assessment specific to Africa, I have an experience of 13 plus years. So we will try to make this session more interesting as much as possible. And if you have any questions, as a moderator has informed you, you can post it in Q&A session. So welcome once again.
So Prima, to start off, let me just introduce everyone into the session. What is a COC and why is it so relevant for a PVoC program for Africa, and which all countries are we usually dealing with in Africa region? So everybody would like to know, as an introduction, the whole certificate of conformity, the process, the procedure, how to approach SGS, how this entire mechanism works. So can you just give us a brief for starters on how that happens?
Thank you. Thank you, Vrinda. So let me first explain what is this certificate of conformity, or what is this COC, what we are talking about. So certificate of conformity is basically a document that ensures the imported goods meet both national and international standards according to the pre-verification conformity of program. So if I want to put it in a simple terms, it's like how you have a passport or a ticket. You cannot travel to any country without a passport or ticket. In the similar way, without having the certificate of conformity, you cannot clear your goods at the destination. So this is one of the mandatory documents which the importer requires so that he can clear the goods from the customs at the destination, whether it might be Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, whatever you name it, any African countries. So this is one of the mandatory documents. And now when we say the certificate of conformity, it is basically a shipment-based certificate. When I say shipment-based certificate, so for every shipment, the customer needs to apply for the certificate of conformity. So it is pertaining to only that particular shipment. And there's a validity for the certificate of conformity. It is 3 months from the date of issuance. So if you're issuing a certificate, for example, now it is a month, we are in month of April. So April, May, June. So by July, the certificate of conformity will expire. So from the date of issuance, it has a validity of 3 months. And this certificate of conformity should always be applied at the load port by the exporter or the manufacturer, because prior to you ship the goods, the certificate of conformity needs to be applied. So now, let me just take all my clients or all my participants to just inform you which are the country-wise coverage we cover. Basically for Africa, we are currently covering 14 regions, as you can all of you see in the screen. We have Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Zanzibar. Then we have Burundi, Ethiopia, Central Africa. And then in West Africa, we have Gabon, Cameroon, Ivory Coast. We also have, in GCC countries also, we have conformity programs for UAE, Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, and Oman. So now, Vrinda, I guess we just explained them what is a certificate of conformity. So I will just take one step ahead and just explain them what is the process flow, or how can a client approach SGS with the certificate of conformity. So in simple terms, we have this 5-step process. The first would be the application. Now, application, the participants or the clients have the privilege to apply either online or offline. So when I say offline, it is basically they have to send the document to SGS emails. When it comes to online, SGS uses an interface called Exporter Portal. So where the client can apply this request through Exporter Portal. The advantage of Exporter Portal is like you can see the status of your file, whether the request is pending from SGS side or it is pending from your side. So it gives a clear dashboard where it states that, okay, whether the client is, documents are pending, you have to submit the final invoice, or SGS has not done the review. Everything you can see a clear-cut screen in this dashboard. So then the second step would be the document review. So under document review, SGS will review whether all the compliant documents are submitted or not. So when I say application, what exactly the application consists is basically who's the exporter, who's the importer, where are your goods ready so that SGS can come and inspect what kind of products you're shipping, whether it is a sea shipment, air shipment. So all these basic details will be there in the application form. So once the document review is done by SGS, if all the documents are compliant, then SGS will decide whether to proceed with the testing or inspection. It depends on the products. It depends on the end country requirements. So once the product testing and the inspection is done, a certificate of conformity will be issued, provided both this testing and inspection is compliant as per the destination requirements. So, okay. Now we have process flows, routes where the client can apply. There are basically 3 routes where a certificate of conformity can be applied. The 3 routes are route A, route B, route C. So let me just elaborate and make you explain you what are this route A, B, C. So now when it comes to route A, it is applicable for all the traders, exporters, manufacturers, everyone. Whoever is coming to SGS to apply for a certificate of conformity, by default, it goes under route A. And this requires under route A, all your shipments needs to undergo a mandatory inspection and testing. So every consignment has to be inspected 100% and testing needs to be done. Now, when I say route B, the client has a privilege to register their products with SGS, and this registration is valid for a period of 1 year. So under registration, this is again applicable for traders and manufacturers. The difference is here, it is basically good for the clients who are having homogeneous products. For example, you have in a particular year, you're shipping, if I say, take an example of chemicals, you're shipping for full year chemicals. You have same shipments going again and again. So instead of going for route A, you can go for route B, which will speed up the process. Your certificate of conformity will be received early. And this registration, product registration is valid for 1 year. You'll be called a registered client. And not only that, under route B, we don't need to inspect every consignment. We just do a surveillance inspection. Only selective consignment will be shipped. So for example, if you have 10 shipments in a year, all 10 will not be inspected. We will do based on the country. For example, if it is Tanzania, once in 3 months, if it is Kenya, yearly too, depends on destination requirements, but selective inspections will be done. So product statement of registration will be issued for a period of 1 year. So all your labeling, marking requirements, all your testing requirements will be checked initially by SGS, and SGS will give you a product registration certificate. Now, route C, when I say route C, there's something similar to route B, but the only difference is like route C can be applied only by manufacturers. This is basically only for manufacturers. So exporters or the traders cannot apply under route C. It is particularly only for manufacturers. And this is a product licensure, what we call under route C. And the extra step when it comes to route C is like we have to do an annual factory audits, which is not there under route B or route A, but under route C, we have to do a factory annual audit. And then it is again, the products are licensed for a particular period of 1 year. So these are the 3 routes, route A, B, C, where the client has the options to go for. So now, as we have explained you what is the process flow, what is the routes, let us just go one step ahead and see what are the kind of prerequisite documents which a customer or a client needs to submit to SGS so that SGS can take and proceed the request. So basically, there are 3 set of documents which is common for all the African region. The first is the application form, which I already explained you in the process flow. So it is basic, which you can apply online or offline. This is mandatory. The second would be the export invoice. When I say the export invoice, it is the invoice which is billed by the exporter to the end customer in the destination. So that is the export invoice. The third step is nothing but the product quality documents. So every product should be supported with the test reports. When I say product quality documents, it can be any kind of test report. It can be, depending on the product, it can be safety data sheets, it can be CB test reports, certificate of analysis, QMS certificates, depending on the product. And then the fourth set of document is not mandatory for all the countries. It is only pertaining to few African countries, which we call it as import permit. For countries like Ivory Coast, Kenya, Cameroon, all those countries require this import permit. So it is not mandatory for all the countries, but the first 3 set, which I have explained, it has to be required for all the regions. So now let me take you all through the general requirements. These are only the general. Again, the specific requirements will differ from your product to product, which SGS will assist you looking into your invoice, looking into the HS code, looking into your standards. So those are detailed, but we have just highlighted few general requirements which will help you to understand our process in a bit better. So when I say about test report, as I've informed you, there is a test report requirement for every product. So this test report, when it comes to Kenya and Uganda, it has to be from ISO 17025 accredited laboratory, okay, and meeting the end destination standards. So again, for Kenya, we have an advantage is like we can also accept the government lab test report, Vrinda. So that is one advantage we have in case if any particular country doesn't have accredited, but they have a government lab, so we can do accept that. And all these test reports or certificate of analysis, it should be traceable to the actual shipment. So it should be either traceable with the model number or batch number, depending on the product. Then when it comes to container sealing, both Kenya and Uganda authorities insist on sealing the containers which are inspected by SGS. So when it comes to Kenya, the container sealing is mandatory for all Route A consignments which are shipped from UAE or China. But when it comes to Uganda, irrespective of country of supply, all the shipments under Route A has to be sealed. So one more thing what I want to explain is like there are certain times there are products where there is no specific national standards, whether it is Kenya or Uganda. So if there is no specific standard, then SGS will go one step ahead. And what we do is like we ask the client if you have the ISO 9001 certificate, in-house test report, the calibration certificate of the equipment. So all this can act as a supporting document. And then when we come to the shelf life requirement, as per the Kenya and Uganda requirements, the shelf life remains same for both the countries. So all non-food items has to have a minimum of 50% of shelf life on arrival of the goods, and all food products has to have minimum of 75% on arrival. And then, as I've already explained about import permit, Kenya is one of the countries where you require this import permit, which is nothing but import declaration form. And this import declaration form needs to be applied by the importer at the destination with Kenya Revenue Authority. So this import permits all comes from the customer's end. So now we'll go for other African countries, the general requirements. Again, the test report requirements, which I mentioned you earlier in Kenya and Uganda, we were highlighting specific on accredited. But these countries, as you can see in the screen, Algeria, Burundi, Cameroon, Ethiopia, one advantage is there that not only ISO 17025 accredited, we can also accept if you have in-house COAs supported with ISO 9001, also the calibration certificate of the test equipments, what you're using for testing. So all this also can be accepted. And then again, the shelf life, which is again 50% for non-food and 75% for all food items. Now, when it comes to Morocco, we have an HS code list given by the authorities. So whether your product is subjected to the certificate of conformity or not subject to certificate of conformity depends on this HS code list. So then again, the test report, the same thing, it should be traceable to the actual shipment. Then one good thing is like for clients who are shipping it to Gabon, if your product which you're shipping to Gabon is a low risk product, and if it is going for a specific project, and you're finding it difficult to find the test report because it is going for project base and not actually for reselling, you're just shipping it out for a particular project, then you have an advantage is like you can just request your importer to give an import declaration letter stating that this consignment is coming only for project base, and then SGS will evaluate and check whether this product is high risk, low risk. If it is low risk product, then we can accept that importer's declaration letter stating that this is going for a project base, and then we can use it as a supporting test report. So we'll go for the next country, Egypt and Tanzania. Okay, when it comes to Egypt and Tanzania, these two countries are very strict when it comes to the test report requirements. We cannot accept any in-house test reports or QMS certificate. It has to be strictly from third party or SGS ISO 17025 accredited laboratories. And then again, when it comes to Tanzania, for all cosmetic products, along with the COC, you also need the TBS product certificate. That is, you need to first apply with the TBS for a product certificate. Only once you have approval from them that you can import this cosmetics, only then you can apply the request with SGS. And when it comes to Egypt, there is, as I mentioned you earlier, there are 3 routes where you can apply through A, B, or C. But when it comes to Egypt, you have to undergo strictly under Route A. You cannot opt for Route B or Route C. And Egypt, the brand registration is mandatory to do for all the regulated products. Again, when it comes to Tanzania, Egypt, the HS code is the one deciding factor to let us know whether it is required, the certificate of conformity is required or not. And then when it comes to shelf life, it is the same, food and non-food. So, Vrinda, as we have just taken our participants on the process flow and we have given them a brief about this, I'm just talking now on the client side. Okay, so you forget that I'm your colleague right now. So I'm just think I'm your client. So I just want to know why this client needs to, what is the benefits they will get if they apply for certificate of conformity, and if they are facing any hurdles, like how SGS can play a role in assisting them to ensure that they have a smooth process. So like, since the clients will not be able to talk, so I'm just putting this question on their behalf.
Yes. So the basic thing about the certificate of conformity, what we must understand here is that it is a regulatory or a statutory requirement placed in by the regulators in individual countries. So it's not just for one African country or two African countries. It is, we SGS operate for 14 contracts altogether, and all the 14 countries have their own regulated requirements. All of them have voluntary options, and some of them have inspection options. Some of them have mandatory COC options. So basically, the criteria that decides that a COC is mandatory is the authority of the country based on the risk of the commodity. Now, what are the advantages that you are getting an upper hand in getting a COC? The basic understanding about a COC is the issuance of a COC is after a technical review, which we explained during the certification process. When you submit the invoice, when a client is submitting the invoice and the product commodity category is evaluated. It is assigned to a particular standard. And when a standard is being evaluated for the product, we are assigning test parameters, ensuring that it is within the critical parameters or within the limits of the standard required by that country, and what additional requirements the regulators of the country has implemented. For example, there may be bans on commodities, there may be some ingredient which has been banned very recently. So all these checks go through the technical review, after which we go ahead and give a confirmation for a COC issuance. So this point of technical review gives an upper hand by ensuring that your products are risk-free and your consumer is having confidence in the quality and the consumption of those products, especially fast-moving consumer goods, because these are there will be perishable commodities, there will be cosmetic type of commodities, prepackaged commodities. So it gives a upper hand to the consumer, basically giving confidence in your brand, giving confidence in your product. It is giving an easy market access. It is also helping to understand that has there been any quality checks, has there been any recalls for these products in the market. So basically, it's all way giving you a better brand value, also confidence with the regulatory authorities in these countries. Now, the basic use of a COC would be that you are using the COC for customs clearance. Now, you go to any authorities where you're taking your consignment without a COC or without an inspection. It is possible that it can lie up in customs for days or weeks, where it awaits a testing and it awaits a destination inspection, whereas your goods, they may, if they're perishable commodities, it is possible that it might turn bad and the shelf life has already been depleted. And you would be forced to either destroy the goods or take it back, which is again a loss on the customer side. Keeping all these things in mind, which is why having a COC in advance is going to give you a green channel clearance, wherein all the documentary data or the technical evaluation has been completed, and only a COC is enough for the client to clear their goods. How and the regulators are controlling this is that they have an access to our system, where they are able to see all these technical documentation and standard compliance against which we have issued the COC. So it is basically a very transparent and free-flowing system, and the customer end result would be a COC, provided everything is in compliance, and then you go ahead and clear your shipment. Once it reaches the market, it is a very easy access to the market, where you sell your goods and then you take your returns. That's how it basically works, as in terms for benefits of having a COC. But yeah.
Vrinda, so as you were explaining, I was just thinking from client side of view, because since we have explained them what is the certificate of conformity and what is required, certain times, since we are handling the operations and directly we are communicating with the clients, we get questions like, I'm not buying from the manufacturer, the products I'm buying from the local market, or my vendors not giving me the test reports. So how SGS can help them when they don't have any quality documents and the destination country requirements strictly implements that the product needs to have a test report. So in this case, how SGS can assist?
Yes, so this is a very common challenge that we are seeing when the clients come up with test reports. Either the test report belong to another country requirement, or it belongs to another standard requirement, or it's even possible that they don't even have a test report. Now, as a solution, what we would offer from SGS is that for testing, we have a very multifunctional laboratory locally available, which I can go through later. But if there is already available test reports, we are assisting clients in ensuring that minimal requirements, how they can go through compliance with the available data with them. So on a technical aspect, let's say, for example, it's possible that there are electrical plugs. There are 2 or 3 categories of plugs that is available. If you go for a type G, Kenya, Uganda, and even Tanzania, they use the same type of plug requirements. So we keep a system in such a way that when a client is approaching SGS with a test report saying that I have this and I want to send my goods to this country, we give them an option that it's not just Kenya. You can also send the goods to Tanzania and Uganda having the same kind of test report. Or you can send the same kind of plug requirement for Algeria, Ethiopia, and Gabon as well, because the requirement remains the same. So we use the same test report. You do not have to go through the process of retesting the commodity, and it's a free flow access. We also have the options for registration wherever possible, where you can take the test report validity up to 1 year, depending upon the commodity again. Because certain products, they have 3-year validity for test reports. Certain products, it has 6 months validity, and certain products have only 1-year validity. This is set by the regulatory authorities. But again, looking on an overall perspective, we can assist. In addition to this, it's also possible that SGS is handling multiple contracts. We are also appointed notified body for the GCC region. We are also working on international level, which is giving a wide spectra advantage for the clients when they submit a test report against an ISO standard, for example, and the requirement is to comply as per the Kenyan standard. So we assist the clients in doing a gap analysis to understand whether the requirements of the Kenyan standard can be met with the available test report of the ISO. And then we understand the gap analysis and we submit it back in such a way that wherever we can accept a test report, we do it. And if there are missing requirements, they need to just comply by the missing requirements. So these are some kind of added advantages of working with SGS. And also, since, as I said, we are a notified body for other countries, there is always a possibility of integrated testing where you are selling the same type of products in GCC, you're selling the same type of products in North Africa. So we have a combination testing where we combine the parameters and make it very simple and precise for the client. So you go through one-time testing. Of course, the validity will vary. However, it will give you a compressed requirement and that integrated procedure. You do not have to resubmit the application. You do not have to talk to multiple people or multiple bodies at the same time. It just moves from one section in SGS to another section where we share the documents with the confirmation from the client, of course, and then there is a level of confidentiality that you can place with SGS. There is integrity and transparency and confidentiality when you work as a single body with SGS. So these are some of the advantages. And when it comes to other commodities, I just gave an example for plugs, but when you come to products like prepackaged food, such as food products, the main basic thing that we are usually checking, other than the testing parameters, would be the label compliance, the shelf life requirements, or even the nutritional value of the labels. So these are all very critical factors. And the upper hand is the production expiry, and all these details will be pre-verified for the client, not at the time of issuance. We can do it beforehand and ensure that the product are in compliance. And we will give all the necessary requirements and detailed regulatory requirements beforehand to the client so that they can ensure that it is applied. When there are new standards being implemented, it's definitely an upper hand because we inform the client the time we get to know that there's a new mandatory standard going forward, the requirements change, or there is a new product standard that's been introduced, which will allow the client for some formulation changes if required, or certain upgrades in their products, or change of artwork, labeling concerns regarding the language concerns on the artwork. All this can be rectified. So if we look at cosmetics, for example, there has been certain bans. There has been a ban on Lilial. This has been a global ban since some time. There has been a ban on zinc-pythion, which is a filter. So there are multiple bans and multiple circulars which are being issued by the regulatory authorities with immediate effect. So when we say already goods are produced and the formulation is ready, the advantage of working with SGS would again be that we will give you an overall view into a global recall, and we are also doing a technical review based on what the global trends are. So there will be always a highlight to the client in advance that there is a trend going on, or there's a global European Union ban on certain commodities, or a US FTA ban on certain commodities, certain ingredients which is related to the products. So it will give an upper hand to the client to understand, to reformulate and rework on their products, keeping in mind that it might be extended to other markets in the world as well. So maybe when it comes to African market, when it comes to case scenarios, definitely SGS can assist by regulating ourselves also in community. We are very much closely aligned to the regulatory authorities. We work closely with the Tanzania Bureau of Standards and KEBS. So we will be able to communicate to these authorities, national authorities, and talk to them and find out solutions as well. Like if there is a grace period allowed for finishing of the goods on shelf, if there is a grace period allowed for implementing a new standard, when there is where is a tight grip. So these are some of the challenges over which we can navigate our clients through during this entire process. Now, when it comes to bulk commodities as well, I think my colleague already explained that there is route A, B, C. Now, when it comes to bulk commodities, there is no route B and C applicable. There is only route A, and every consignment has to be inspected with a traceable test report. Bulk commodities, mainly we are talking about sugar or fertilizer, or we have oil, or we also have soils in certain cases. So these are some of the categories we need to be focused on, and to understand what kind of requirements apply for different products when you are going into reaching out to the African market. So in addition to that, I think it's time for some of the updates that has been happening. So Prima, just let us know, what do you think are the recent updates? We heard a few of them, a few circulars, the standard updates. So can you just brief us about what latest news is there?
Okay, thank you, Vrinda. Before just going to updates, because as we're explaining, it was very informative section. Just few questions popped up in my mind, because as we were telling that we are doing for various countries. So we from SGS side, because if I'm a client, so I'm shipping it to, imagine I'm shipping it to 4 different countries. So I would not prefer to send test reports to SGS every now and then for every shipment, because it is an extra work for me. That why would I send 5 times test reports? Why I need to send to Kenya team once, or Tanzania or Saudi? So does SGS maintains any database to keep this test report safe? And then are we allowed to internally use it, or do we need to get an authorization from the client?
Definitely we need an authorization from the client, because when we look at Africa market, we are having a mixed portfolio of clients. We have traders, we have buyers, and we have also manufacturers. So it's also possible that the same manufacturers' goods can be, bought from the market. So it depends upon the type of market that we are selling in. But the authorization is a very important thing. We will not be, unless authorized, we are not permitted to cross-use any of the documents. But if the same client has the same set of products being sold in different markets, for example, Saudi, and then they have it in Africa, and if they have tested it for Africa, we can definitely look at the test report. What is a compliance mechanism to also use the same test report for Saudi Arabia? So this is the kind of integration that we are talking about. We have a common database. We have a centralized system. Accessibility is there, but also there is confidentiality. So there is also an authorization and restriction on, because it's all different teams, different camps who will be assisting you. But even though there is an integrated system, we would require authorization from the client before we use any of their confidential documents. So that rest assured, if the same client is insisting to use the same set of reports to another market, we can definitely help them guide how to reach out to that market as well.
Good, perfect. So now since we are talking about testing so much, so it would be good if we tell our clients what kind of products SGS can assist them in testing, because we have very well-equipped labs within SGS. So if you can just brief
So for
them.
testing, we have a multifunctional lab in UAE itself. So any of the clients who are interested in testing, or let's say basically do not have a test report, and a 17025 accredited lab report is mandatory for most of the African countries. SGS Dubai Lab has a huge scope for testing, which includes food, cosmetics, textiles, electrical commodity, chemical products, oil and gas, paints, and even we have other small end commodities such as jewelry and paper and packaging, food contact material. So ROHS testing, all these additional testing capability with an accreditation in the scope is also valid for SGS Dubai Labs. So any kind of, even for building material to a certain extent, we are assisting the clients. For mechanical products also, we are assisting the clients. So in case if you have a requirement or to make things easier, when you do not have a test report where it is mandatory, SGS Dubai can be a pit stop option for testing in laboratory. So Prima, maybe we can see what updates are there, at least for testing. Yes, we can see.
Thank you, Vrinda. It was very good information. So now let's talk about the recent updates, what have come from the authorities. Let us go country by country. The first thing, as you can see in the screen, would be Kenya. So the recent update, what we have received from Kenya Bureau of Standards is like, now as per the current regulation, brown sugar can be imported only from COMESA regions, that is common markets for Eastern and Southern Africa. So you cannot import brown sugar from any other countries other than COMESA regions. And this is only applicable for brown sugar. It is not applicable for refined or raw sugar. So refined and raw sugar, you can ship it out as you were doing earlier, but this requirement is specific on the brown sugar. Also, when it comes to used clothing and textiles, Kenya Bureau of Standards have now made it mandatory that every used clothing shipment prior to SGS inspecting it, a bail site audit needs to be done. Now, to specify or give more details on this bail site audit is just to ensure that the warehouse where you're storing the goods, you have well enough space, the goods are properly maintained, fumigated. And again, when I'm saying fumigation, there are two chemicals, that is methyl bromide and phostoxins, which are banned now by KEBS. You cannot use this as a fumigants to fumigate your containers or the used clothing. And then the next is like stainless steel sinks are now considered as the high risk items by KEBS, and this is not allowed to be registered under Route B, so it has to strictly go under Route A. And for Kenya, once the certificate of conformity is issued, there is no amendments allowed by KEBS. So that is the reason SGS initially sends you the draft. Again, then we have a timelines for the issuance of certificate. We have to issue it on the same day once the draft COC is generated. But once the certificate of conformity is issued, there is no amendments allowed by Kenya Bureau of Standards. So SGS cannot amend any certificate which is issued for Kenya.
So Prima, just interrupt you there. We were talking about the update. So we were also discussing about non-amendments and on-site audits. So is this inspection and sealing mandatory for Kenyan contract for all the consignments, or is it only for certain consignments? And can we skip it? Do we have an option?
No, good question, Vrinda. See, when I say for Kenya sealing, all Route A consignments, which is going particularly, whether if it is going from UAE or China. So all which is going under Route A from UAE or China, sealing is mandatory. So if you do not do the container sealing, KEBS will not entertain the certificate of conformity issued by SGS. So it has to be sealed. So sealing is mandatory, and KEBS strictly follows this.
Okay.
So now when we come to Uganda, Vrinda, for Uganda, when it only used products, that is textiles and footwear, only these are regulated under the Uganda program, which requires a certificate of conformity. Rest all used products comes under the destination inspection. Also, the test report for food products now UNBS allows us to accept for 6 months. So the validity is extended to 6 months. Earlier, it was not there. So now they are allowing. Also, for new motor vehicles, SGS can do a voluntary COC. And then when it comes to ISO 9001 certificate for product registration, so let me just give you what exactly is this. See, when it comes to Kenya, when you do a product registration with the SGS, the beneficiary of the product registration, then the client who's going to register his product with SGS needs to have a mandatory ISO 9001 certificate. But for Uganda, ISO 9001 is not mandatory. So even a trader, if he wants, he can do the product registration. But the only difference is, like in Uganda, only the client who is doing the product registration can use that statement of registration. So no third party can use this statement of registration. It is applicable only to the beneficiary, and only that particular beneficiary can use that product registration. When it comes to Tanzania, TMDA product registration certificate is required for all the medical and medicine products. And then again, under Tanzania, recently the new contract came in March 2025. So there is a new list of HS code, which differentiates the product, whether it is regulated, non-regulated, or destination. Because for Tanzania, it depends on the HS code of the product. So the new list is updated last month. So if anybody wants to know on the products, whether it is regulated or not regulated, they can always reach out to SGS. Also for tires, tubes, and flaps, these three products are having different Tanzanian standards. So when the client is shipping these products, you cannot ship it as one product. You have to mention it separately in the invoices, and even in the SGS certificate of conformity, these will be shown separately because all these three products have a different standards. And there is also a ban on the plastic carrier bags, which is not allowed to be imported to Tanzania. When it comes to Egypt, the test report validity earlier was 3 years. Now they have extended to 5 years.
Specifically for battery.
Yes, correct. So now when it comes to Morocco, effective Jan 2025, all the requests what the client is submitting, they have to submit through the ministry portal. Earlier, it was not like that. Earlier, for Morocco shipments, you can just send the request to SGS, but now it is not like that. Now the authorities insist that the client approaches the authorities, they apply, there's something called ministry portal. You have to apply your request to ministry portal, and then the authority will resubmit this request to the service providers so that we can proceed.
So I think that has brought us to the end of this webinar today. If you want to reach out to us, please reach out to us. Displayed on the screen would be our point of contacts, our contact numbers and email IDs. So this would be a good opportunity. We have our colleagues' email IDs and numbers as well, which has been displayed. So for different contracts or any kind of assistance with SGS, please reach out to us. I think, Prima, we can go into some of the questions now. If I think there are some questions being posted.
Yeah.
So
before we just step into the question, I just want to add something, because I guess we were explaining about the testing, we were explaining about the container sealing, but we also want to inform all our participants. SGS is also having remote inspections, which is basically a digital inspections, which is it's basically done remotely. This will help you, because if your location is far away and you want urgent inspections, if you want you send us a request in the morning and you have a cutoff tomorrow and you have to get it inspected, then we can assist in doing a digital inspection. So the same day we can assist you in arranging the inspection and then later issue the certificate. So it will save a lot of time. So we have something called remote inspection, which you can utilize. But then again, we will not be doing the remote inspection to very high risk products, but medium risk and low risk products is just will always assist for remote inspections.
And with our coverage of offices globally, I think wherever there is a mandatory physical inspection, we can definitely easily arrange the physical inspections. And if there are some difficulties to access remote areas, our offices are available within the country or within the reach. So we will also be able to arrange the remote inspections from any locations nearby too. All that I think that we require for this would be internet availability or Wi-Fi availability, and download an app, which is SGS app for the remote inspections on a phone or a tab.
Yeah, that's a good thing what you told, because it is not mandatory that the end user needs to have a laptop. If you have any smartphones, this app can be supported on that smartphones. So with your smartphones also, you can download the app and we can assist for remote inspection.
Yes.
Once again, thank you and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for attending the session.